Hello, BookTube. What better way to deal with a crappy week than a book haul? Fortunately, my crappy week does not involve my reading, which has been really good so far. So, this book haul is the product of me taking advantage of several sales. First off, there was a 20% off sale uh, after Thanksgiving from Powell's The Great Bookstore in Portland, Oregon. I bought 10 books from that sale. And also, at the end of the year, a number of university presses have been having their year-end sales, including the University of Chicago Press and LSU Press. And I bought a bevy of poetry volumes from both of them. So let's get started. I have already logged all of these books into my catalog and alphabetized them. So instead of the Powell's books being together and then the University of Chicago Press books and the LSU books, they're all together alphabetically. So we'll be starting with University of Chicago, although this is Omnidon. The University of Chicago Press does a number of distribution for other smaller presses, and Omnidon is one of them. This is Everyone I Love Alive by Jason Bayani. So, slim volume of poetry. So, I'm going to read the blurb from Elaine Castillo, author of America Is Not the Heart, How to Heal, How to Read Now, and Moderation. Bayani's lucid, questing poems sing with a voice full of heartache, fury, and hope, knowing, too, that a serenade, like any poem, is a way to share the breath of life. These poems do just that. They see that which is nearly lost, nearly gone, and then they go to work. They resuscitate. Also from University of Chicago Press, although they are distributing Carnegie Mellon University Press, is The End of the Clockwork Universe by Fleda Brown. This is from Diane Seuss. In her essential new collection, The End of the Clockwork Universe, Fleda Brown echoes A.R. Amon's statement that a poem is a walk. In poems which move with a wandering gait and sensibility, Brown is brilliantly adept at witnessing the natural world with humor and heartache. From the sweet pea to the snapping turtle, spring grasses to black holes, she is buoyed by the fact that things themselves go on without us and without our poems. The collection finds its way to an emphatic neutrality, even with a pile of dead flies, even as she contends with breast cancer. It is an awareness of delicate immensity and hopeless generosity. Who's left to sing, she writes, if not you? Sticking with University of Chicago Press books, and this is from Kevin Carey Press, is Dead Things and Where to Put Them by Marina Carriera. So this blurb is from Claudia Cortese, author of Wasp Queen. Marina Carrera's Dead Things and Where to Put Them takes up Mary Oliver's mantle with exquisite poems about baby rabbits, buttoned eyes and tiny ears, bodies sleek with new foreign soil. A white worm moon wriggling her big belly across the backyard grass, and the glimmering eye of a doe greeting the morning with a yawn. Carriera goes a step further by placing her nature poems in the context of pandemic patriarchy, whiteness, and a working-class girlhood in Newark. In Litany for Surviving, the speaker reflects on what a privilege it is to own this imagination, this safe white skin. How dare I think of summer, streams, and fauna when so many have yet to know freedom of such things? This is not just a poetry book, it's a guide for how to love in this broken world. And Marina Carriera is one of my favorite poets. I have an earlier work of hers. This is the first from LSU, Ever After by Fred Chappell. In his final book, the celebrated poet Fred Chappell reflects on life and the beyond. Details drawn from daily actions, religion, classical myth, and the Appalachian landscape adorn this autumnal collection that unearths connections both strong and tenuous among apparently disparate subjects, all percolated with Chappell's signature wit and warm vision. A student's observation that poems are how we see with our eyes closed comes to resemble an icon of sorrow. A stairway to heaven ends with a jug of wine. Memories assume shifting appearances. Often written in traditional sonnet forms, Chappell's poems display astonishing technical skill and indefatigable humanity as they gaze on the challenges of life and the great unknown. A spirited and friendly farewell, Ever After shows an accomplished and much beloved American writer gracing us with poems of remarkable originality, craft, and insight. So, this is the first of the books I picked up from Powell's. The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Told in a series of vignettes stunning for their eloquence, The House on Mango Street is Sandra Cisneros' greatly admired novel of a young girl growing up in the Latino section of Chicago. Acclaimed by critics, beloved by children, their parents and grandparents, taught everywhere from inner-city grade schools to universities across the country and translated all over the world, it has entered the canon of coming-of-age classics. Sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes deeply joyous, The House on Mango Street tells the story of Esperanza Cordero, whose neighborhood is one of harsh realities and harsh beauty. Esperanza doesn't want to belong, not to her run-down neighborhood, and not to the low expectations the world has for her. Esperanza's story is that of a young girl coming into her power and inventing for herself what she will become. Back to LSU with The Furies by Moira Egan. In The Furies, Moira Egan offers fierce feminist reimaginings of familiar myths and narratives, from Arachne to Echo, from Medusa and Mary Magdalene to the female characters of the Odyssey, in verse that highlights the value of solidarity and collective strength among women. With dazzling erudition and playful ingenuity, she deploys exuberant wordplay in traditional poetic forms to subvert the patriarchal canon. At the heart of the book is a profound exploration of voice, not least the ongoing silencing of women's voices. Egan blends righteous anger with grief, ultimately finding hope in the transformative power of language. Back to Powell's with Actress by Anne Enright. Catherine O'Dell is an Irish theatre legend. Every moment of her life is a performance, with her daughter Nora standing in the wings. With age, alcohol, and dimming stardom, however, Catherine's grip on reality grows fitful. Fueled by a proud and long-simmering rage, she commits a bizarre crime. As Nora's role gradually changes to Catherine's protector, caregiver, and finally legacy keeper, she revisits her mother's life of fiercely kept secrets. And Nora confronts, in turn, the secrets of her own sexual and emotional coming of age. With virtuosic storytelling, actress weaves together two generations of women with difficult sexual histories, touching a raw and timely nerve. So back to LSU with Glance by Chanda Feldman. Glance, the second collection of poetry by Chanda Feldman, explores the experiences of a black and white and Jewish American family that moves abroad to find respite from contemporary racial violence. Spanning diverse landscapes in Israel and the Middle East, Europe, and the United States, the poems grapple with the inability to escape brutalities and prejudices, asking where and if it is possible to find a sense of home and community. Feelings of belonging and estrangement, safety and threat, as well as questions of identity, both of the self and the family, drive the speaker to look inward and outward in order to navigate the world. Though never breaking free from their attendant anxieties, Feldman's poems revel in the beauty of environment and place as they traverse global spaces, from the sea to the city, from the playground to the museum, from orchard to the synagogue, seeking a home in the world. Also from LSU is In Plenty's Woods by Brendan Galvin. In Plenty's Woods, a final collection of poems by Brendan Galvin, returns to many settings and subjects that fascinated him. The natural world, particularly the birds around his home off Cape Cod in Truro, Massachusetts, the attractions and dangers of the seashore, his Irish heritage, including his rich language and folk culture, and the pleasures of domestic life. He explores the natural order in dialogue, sometimes playful, sometimes grave, with a personal realm of love, mortality, and the history embedded in the language we exchange. Whether describing the bird life he sees, even in winter, speculating on the voices heard by sleeping sailors at sea, or writing a love poem he cannot read to his departed wife, Galvin remains a poet of consummate skill and powerful emotion who works the narrative lyric with great precision of attention, flexibility of tone, and expressivity of figure. Sticking with poetry, but one that I picked up from Powell's, is What the Living Do by Marie Howe. This is her second collection of poetry, and I mentioned earlier that I read her most recent and new and selected collection and really loved the selections from this collection and wanted to add it to my collection, which I did. So this blurb is from Liz Rosenberg, writing for the Boston Globe. What the Living Do is a deeply beautiful book, with the fierce galloping pace of a great novel. This is a book that many of us will need and be grateful to have. Howe's writing is not so much a moan or a shriek as a song. It is a genuinely feminine form, a poetry of intimacy, witness, honesty, and relation. Call it revelation rather than confession. This poetry is not a vortex of introversion. It turns inward and outward at once. It praises as well as blames. It leads not toward despair and suicide, but toward life, a celebration of the homely things the living do, waiting for the plumber, shopping, washing up, the miracle of a lover's kiss. And sticking with Powell's for the next few books is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Staring unflinchingly into the abyss of slavery, this spellbinding novel transforms history into a story as powerful as Exodus and as intimate as a lullaby. Sethi, its protagonist, was born a slave and escaped to Ohio, but 18 years later she is still not free. She has too many memories of Sweet Home, the beautiful farm where so many hideous things happened, and Sethi's new home is haunted by the ghost of her baby, who died nameless and whose tombstone is engraved with a single word, beloved. Filled with bitter poetry and suspense as taut as a rope, Beloved is a towering achievement by Nobel Prize laureate Toni Morrison. So this book is going to be a second chance. I've had Beloved a few times and did not get on with it the last time I tried it, so I want to give it another go, so I picked it back up. I am very much in the mood for second chances, as you will see with the next few books. Next up is At Swim Two Boys by Jamie O'Neill. Set during the year preceding the Easter Uprising of 1916, Ireland's brave but fractured revolt against British rule, At Swim Two Boys is a tender, tragic love story and a brilliant depiction of people caught in the tide of history. Powerful and artful, and 10 years in the writing, it is a masterwork from Jamie O'Neill. Jim Mack is a naive young scholar and the son of a foolish, aspiring shopkeeper. Doyle is the rough diamond son, revolutionary and blasphemous, of Mr. Mac's old army pal. Out at the 40-foot, that great jet of rock where gentlemen bathe in the nude, the two boys make a pact. Doyle will teach Jim to swim, and in a year on Easter of 1916, they will swim to the distant beacon of Muglin's Rock and claim that island for themselves. All the while, Mr. Mac, who has grand plans for a corner shop empire, remains unaware of the depth of the boys' burgeoning friendship and of the changing landscape of a nation. So again, I had I Swim Two Boys for a number of years, and I finally got around to reading it. It didn't quite work out at the time, but I've been thinking seriously about giving this another go, and Steve Donahue's recent Irish literature starter kit gave me the kick in the pants to reacquire it. Next is The Overstory by Richard Powers. National Book Award winner Richard Powers' 12th novel is a sweeping, impassioned work of activism and resistance that is also a stunning evocation of and paean to the natural world. From the roots to the crown and back to the seeds, the Overstory unfolds in concentric rings of interlocking fables that range from antebellum New York to the late 20th century timber wars of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. There is a world alongside ours, vast, slow, interconnected, resourceful, magnificently inventive, and almost invisible to us. This is a story of a handful of people who learn how to see that world and who are drawn up into its unfolding catastrophe. So I've never owned the Overstory, but I did have a go at it around the time it won the Pulitzer, I think, and didn't get on with it. And I selected this book as part of my doomed 10 contemporary classics I must redeem, and was one of the ones that I did not actually pick up at the time. But I've been thinking about having another go at it for some time. So the next two books are by Salman Rushdie. First is Midnight's Children. Greeted by fireworks displays, cheering crowds, and Prime Minister Nehru himself, Salim Sinai is born at the stroke of midnight on August 15, 1947, the very moment of India's independence. Salim grows up to learn the ominous consequences of this coincidence. His every act is mirrored and magnified in events that sway the course of national affairs. His health and well-being are inextricably bound to those of his nation. His life is inseparable, at times indistinguishable, from the history of his country. Perhaps most remarkable are the telepathic powers linking him with India's 1,000 other Midnight's children, all born in that initial hour and endowed with magical gifts. This novel is at once a fascinating family saga and an astonishing evocation of a vast land and its people. A brilliant incarnation of the universal human comedy. 25 years after its publication, Midnight's Children stands apart as both an epochal work of fiction and a brilliant performance by one of the great literary voices of our time. I also picked up Shame by Salman Rushdie. So this one is a reacquisition. I picked it up a few years ago for a project in which I would try to read some fiction that was published in the year of my birth. It did not go well, but I want to give it another go. In this brilliant novel, Salman Rushdie masterfully combines history, art, language, politics, and religion. Set in a country not quite Pakistan, the story centers around the families of two men. One a celebrated warrior, the other a debauched playboy engaged in a protracted duel that is played out in the political landscape of their country. Shame is a tour de force and a fitting predecessor to the author's legendary novel, The Satanic Verses. Back to poetry with What Now Is Now Is Now, translated from the Slovak. So it's What Is Now Is Now Is Now by Nora Ruzickova. I know I butchered that surname. Translated from the Slovak by Ivana Hostova. So this is distributed by the University of Chicago Press for Seagull, which is a publisher that specializes in Indian literature and also literature and translation. Nora Ruzicova's poetry merges bodily experience with linguistic experimentation, evolving from self-reflection to an exploration of the complexities of gender and Central European identity. Her work deftly weaves personal narratives with political and social commentary, forging poems that are both intellectually provocative and deeply embodied. This selection spans nearly 25 years, tracing her work from a late millennium debut to her latest, most socially engaged collection, which explores novelty within the grand narratives of modern history and critiques humanity's obsession with progress. Through her poems, she challenges the boundaries of language, blending physicality with abstraction through a combination of potent imagery and philosophical reflection. Her poetry treats the body as a space where meaning is simultaneously created and dismantled, probing themes of identity, existence, and the instability of interpretation. By experimenting with materiality, bodily experience, and the ever-changing mediascape, Ruzickova captures the complexities of contemporary human life and dissolves the divide between language and physical reality. In its concluding section, the selection confronts pivotal historical moments in humanity's relentless pursuit of progress, making for a powerful, thought-provoking engagement with the present. So the final selection of poetry from the University of Chicago Press is As When Walking by Daniel Schonning. And so this blurb is from Douglas Kearney, Phoenix Poets Consulting Editor and author of Optic Subwoof. Schonning takes up a popular and time-honored poetic constraint, an English abecedarian. It is within the seeming simplicity and accessibility of the form that his innovation, improvisation, surprise, and risk find their most well-appointed playgrounds. Looping through the alphabet, Schonning deftly shows us the opportunities we let slip when we stop at Z. There are amazements, wonders, and magics in this collection. Next, and back to the Powell's order, is Waterland by Graham Swift. Set in the bleak Fen country of East Anglia and spanning some 240 years in the lives of its haunted narrator and his ancestors, Waterland is a book that takes in eels and incest, ale-making and madness, the heartless sweep of history, and a family romance as tormented as any in Greek tragedy. So, Waterland was shortlisted for the 1983 Booker Prize, as was Shame and the ultimate winner, The Life and Times of Michael Kay. And I've been circling this book ever since I've been wanting to read fiction from the year of my birth, which was a project that I think Criminale came up with 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm finally getting around to picking up Waterland. And finally is a reacquisition, although of a book that I actually do really like, but I got rid of it years ago, and I don't quite know why. And that is Kitchen by Yoshimoto, translated from the Japanese by Megan Backus. Yoshimoto's dazzling English-language debut, Kitchen, won 2 of Japan's most prestigious literary prizes and has sold over hundreds of thousands of copies in the English-speaking world. It is an enchantingly original and deeply affecting book about mothers, love, tragedy, and the power of the kitchen and home in the lives of a pair of free-spirited young women in contemporary Japan. Mikage is an orphan raised by her grandmother who has passed away. Grieving, she is taken in by her friend Yoichi and his trans mother Eriko. As the three form an improvised family that soon weathers its own tragic losses, Yoshimoto spins a lovely, evocative tale that recalls early Marguerite Duras. Kitchen and its companion story, Moonlight Shadow, are elegant tales whose seeming simplicity is the ruse of a writer whose voice echoes in the mind and the soul. So, very, very happy to have this haul. I don't know if this is going to be the last book haul of 2025. I'm probably going to get a book or two for Christmas. And of course, there will be some Christmas money. So I will probably use that to get me some more books. Although I don't know whether these books will come in at the end of 2025 or will come in at the beginning of 2026. I will, of course, report back on how things turn out. Although, if they are classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama, well, I did get no drama in this haul, but if they go in this part of my library, I will possibly put them with these books before I shelve them. Because I currently have my Bill Redemption project ongoing, and I've got books over here. So I'm going to hold off until those books get put back on the shelves before I put these books on the shelves. And hopefully some of these books don't slip between the bookcases. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now, and I think do some rearranging in the library. So until I see you tomorrow with Weekly Reads, thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.